Jill, are we all set? All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 26, 2024 Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Before we start the hearing, I'd like to explain the procedures we will be following. When a case is called, the applicant will present their case. Jill, are we going to have them come here? Our room is different than usual. We're not going to have the screen tonight. All right, so. Yeah, that's fine. So you'll come up to the microphone. All right. So when a case is called, the applicant will come up to the microphone and present your case to the board. The applications and full staff reports were all posted on the village website at least a week ago and were available for the public to review. The applicant and all speakers in support of or opposition to the application are reminded that the board's decision will be based on the standards set forth in the village code, and all comments should be directed to those standards. After the applicant's presentation is completed, the board may ask questions of the applicant and may ask questions of the applicant or other speakers at any time during the hearing. Comments first in support of and then in opposition to the application will be heard. After all of the testimony has been heard, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony. At the conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, the case will be closed. After closing the hearing for each individual case, the board will deliberate and vote. During this time, no additional testimony may be given by anyone. Please note that if your case is approved today, a written decision will be mailed to you. Before we open the first case, please note that we are all volunteers. I'd like each of the board members to confirm their presence for purposes of a roll call and establishing a quorum for this hearing and to introduce themselves. Can we start with Mr. DeVideo?
Good evening. My name is Dan DeVideo. I've been on the board for about 10 years. Fairport native, all my years.
Good evening, I'm Aaron Stuckey.
I'm Jamie Maywison, Chair of the Zoning Board.
I'm Justin Beckman. I've been on the board for three or 4 years now.
And I'm Phil Sparks. I'm the newest member of the board.
Okay, so we have Jill.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Phil Sparks will be acting as a full member for this, as he's an alternate.
All right. And do we have, the first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from the February 28th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion from an attendee from that meeting to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, so we'll review our first case. Jill, would you read the case, please?
Yep, so this is case one. The case type is an area variance. The address is 14 Fireside Lane. The applicants are Lauren Dunkel and Benjamin DeLugos. The request is to legalize a driveway expansion where the driveway is more than 2 feet wider than the garage door to which it leads. So you can come up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren, this is Ben. Do we go through this with you? We've never done this before. Yep. Yeah? Okay,
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks for having us. I would say this is fun, but I want to see what your verdict is first before I say that. So we've been living in Fairport since 2018. We bought our house. It is a duplex. You wouldn't know from looking on the outside. It's a beautiful property. And we have tenants on the other side who are emergency responders, essentially, 24 hours on their call. And between the four of us on the property, we have 5 vehicles total. One of them is a work vehicle. And what we noticed, so we've had them for a very long time. And what we noticed is in the winter, they have to drop off one of their vehicles. I believe they were doing it down here somewhere where there's public parking. I don't know exactly which lot it was. While they would park the one that they needed in the driveway. And we were just kind of worried about them from their safety perspective of walking and late at night. So we were just talking about the expansion of the driveway. This happened last year. I will say it has already been done. And when we did it, I did ask the contractor at the time, do you check coding? Is there anything we need to do? Which he said, yes, there's no problem. He does work here all the time. Went forward with the project, and then we found out that it is bigger than what's allowed to the code. So we've been working with Jill over the last couple weeks to put this variance request together to hopefully keep our driveway that is already installed, as it has been really helpful. Our tenants have been happy, and then we obviously have support from all the neighboring properties, and there's actually one that's missing too that I know was recently submitted as well. So a lot of people are in approval. We also are, a bus stop is our corner, and so it has eliminated a lot of concerns from the kids. They're a little wild in the morning, I've witnessed that and heard it myself, but they're running around, and the way the bus route comes, not having cars parked on the street is really good from a site perspective as well. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you got it.
And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. So if you'll stay there, I'm gonna open it up to the board for questions. Are there any questions from board members?
I don't really have a question, but I do notice that there are a lot of driveways in your neighborhood that are already non-conforming in that respect, that have been expanded either to the side of the garage or wider than double width in front of a one-car garage or similar to that. So it seems that it's already been done quite extensively in your neighborhood.
And I can comment a little bit on that. The examples that you showed, I could not find any permits or any legalizing documents for any of those expansions. So it doesn't mean that at some point they weren't legal, but there was nothing within the files that I was able to locate that said that they had a permit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Am I allowed to comment?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thanks for saying that, Jill. I didn't know. And that's a really great point, and thanks, Dan, for saying that, because for the neighboring properties pictures that I compiled for you all, and there were more that I thought might be a little bit too much to add to the packet, but I could provide more details. 42 East Street is exactly our neighbor. It is 305 feet from us, and it is actually a bigger driveway than ours, if not the same size. So it definitely conforms with the neighborhood look and feel, because I know that's important to the village and how that looks as well.
Other questions? And you said it was completed last year?
Spring of last year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
spring of
and
last
we
year.
did call the contractor after to ask him about this, which he said he was very surprised, and I don't know I don't think he's gonna do anything about it, obviously, but, yes, it was completed last spring.
Okay.
I guess that's proof that the code is exciting.
And just looking at the photos you included, it looks like the area under the camper to the east of the garage, that was also paved, am I?
Yes.
Yeah, so, right, we brought it up, again, we didn't know about the coding, but when we were talking to him, and at the time, we had a camper, we don't have one anymore. That was to park it there during the summer when we were using it, but again, we removed it, but yeah, it just expands a little bit, which is kind of nice for the garbages and things of that nature.
But I do want to reference that the survey map shows that there was a portion that was prior to the applicants paving it, there was a portion that was paved.
Yes.
Yes. Towards the plastic shed, if I'm reading the image correctly, Jill? Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there anyone, you guys can have a seat.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else here to speak in support of this application? Anybody opposed? Okay, so we'll close the public comment portion of this case and discuss as a board.
Would you like to dive right into the standards?
I think so.
Okay. So the first standard is an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the requested area variance.
All right, so for this question, we would define the neighborhood as the Fireside Lane and Homestead. And I think it's already been noted that there are several examples in the neighborhood with expanded driveways.
Well, if we're gonna define the neighborhood that way, all of the photographs are offered as evidence from outside the neighborhood.
Fair point.
Well,
The one adjacent to it, the east, 42 East Street is adjacent. Their address fronts
Except to do
to
the line,
east, but their side yard is Fireside. It's a corner lot,
okay,
so.
I'll concede the point.
you can also reference, because the board members do make site visits, if you also found that through your site visits that there are numerous properties in the neighborhood, as indicated as Fireside and Homestead, that have similar similar design, driveway design, you can also reference that.
I think my observation was that there were fewer on Homestead. There were some that probably were like borderline code that had extended maybe just past the driveway or the garage for like garbage cans or something like that. I don't think there were as many that were as broad as most of the ones provided in the example.
Would you like to expand the neighborhood to include Hart and Frank?
Or at least perhaps East Street.
I'm content with the definition of the neighborhood.
Okay.
I think that region where Homestead and Fireside cross, and that's an appropriately defined neighborhood. So I would go so far as to say there are other neighboring properties, not necessarily within the defined neighborhood, but other neighboring properties that exhibit the same characteristics. And if we consider other neighboring properties, then we could bring the record back in. Otherwise, we're excluding the photograph, effectively excluding the photographs from the record, even though they've been offered as evidence of what they propose to do.
It's entirely up to the board, because I am completely content with having the photographs be part of the record, but not necessarily be referenced in your decision. So it's up to you how you want to handle it.
I'm inclined to admit the photographs, or to accept the photographs as evidence,
Okay,
but not as evidence of what the neighborhood says, but what evidence of what neighboring properties might do,
that works for me.
okay?
Okay.
Is there additional discussion about
Nope.
an undesirable change being
Oh.
produced in the character of the neighborhood?
No.
No?
All right, we'll move on to the next one. The benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved in some feasible manner other than an area variance.
Discussion?
Well, they need to get 5 vehicles, am I correct? 5 vehicles off the street. Now, they can park bumper to bumper, but that doesn't solve their problem.
One thing that I didn't look at was length of the driveway. I assume it's not feasible to fit 3. It's probably not deep enough to fit 3 in a line.
Depth-wise,
you know, one way a lot of people deal with it is just the
Depth.
jockeying of the cars, right? When one needs to move. It's not ideal, but,
Actually, I think the one way to kind of, even though I can't pick it out quickly, but looking at the photos that they've got, where they've got the Isaac work truck and a car directly behind it, I believe it's the second photo they entered in record. The back end of the car would indicate, the back end of the blue car would indicate that there's not sufficient space in all likelihood to add that third vehicle.
except for the garage bay.
True, the garage bays.
So I would say that
That would be the,
you could achieve parking 3 cars on one side of the garage if the garage bay was in use. Again, it's not ideal from a logistics standpoint when you need to make arrangements on a daily basis about what order they're parked in case somebody needs to get out, but,
Yeah, well, that of course is a common problem on much, much smaller properties
Yes.
than this one, right? Where there may be absolutely no possibility of expanding the driveway in either direction. So people deal with that problem all the time by doing exactly what you suggest.
yeah.
The question is, does the code implicitly require people to
Right.
jockey cars that way? And I
Sure.
think the answer is no.
Right.
And I think, let me add to the discussion, this is, I guess, a different situation than some of the driveways you've seen where there's plenty of yard space to expand. You know, they're not coming closer to a lot line, it's simply moving farther out from that garage door.
Any additional discussion on 2?
No.
no.
All right. Question 3?
The proposed area variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Discussion?
No, I don't think so. I think it actually improves the situation by getting the cars off the road.
I can see no direct adverse impact by this expansion either.
I concur.
And I appreciate the comment about the bus stop and safety with cars not being parked on the road and improving the sight lines for kids getting on and off buses during the day. All right, question 4.
The requested area variance is substantial.
Well, it is mathematically. It's 50% wider than allowed.
Although relative to the size of the lot, it's not particularly substantial. I mean, this is a large lot on a corner where there is still an ample side yard left.
Right, substantial with regard to the width of the existing driveway,
Yes,
but not
right,
substantial with
but
regard
not
to
substantial with
the
respect
lot
to the property
size.
as a whole. So I think that's an important distinction to make.
Any more on that one?
No,
Okay.
not for me.
The alleged difficulty was self-created.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Do you want to expand on that?
so the work was done without a permit. So, and as we've already said, the code does not require, but does not permit the expansion of the driveway.
Anything else on that one? Okay. You want to take a vote?
Do we have a motion to approve this application as submitted?
I'll make the motion to approve the application as submitted.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you for coming in.
so now we have to ask the applicant what the answer to her opening question was.
The minutes can stay mostly fun.
We'd like to get a 5-star rating.
Almost there. But yes, you can get that. Thank you.
Thank you. You are free to go, or you can stay and join us, participate in the rest of the meeting if you'd like. You're welcome.
It's a lot of fun.
I don't want to kick you out, but also don't feel compelled to stay if you have other things you need to do.
This is setting up to be probably the most fun zoning board meeting we've ever had.
I mean, we have an
This-
image to repair, I feel like, just in general.
You
like-
are the board of no.
We're also haven't met in a little bit of time.
That's true. It's been since February. All right, I'll announce the next case.
All right, thank you.
So this is case 2. The applicant is Michael Loria. The project address is 8 Durant Place. The request is to construct a detached accessory structure, a garage, not meeting certain lot, yard, and bulk requirements.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Loria. I'm a native. I lived in this village my entire life. Been on the hunt for a house for a long time, and it's proven been difficult. And I found a location on Durant. Needs a decent amount of love, and it never ends. The missing piece is naturally the garage. It's a considerably small lot. It's, I don't have any data, but it's gotta be one of the smaller lots on the street. It may even be one of the only without a garage. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. The area from the back of the lot to the house is considerably small. It's about 40% of the entire backyard. So I really wanted to place it more towards the lot line. The back, if I place it any further from where the existing garage was, so there was an existing garage there. It was a bank buy, and the bank doesn't want to fix anything, so they just knock everything down that they don't want to fix. So that's what I would ideally like to replace what was there once upon a time. I want to say it was about 6 years ago is when they took it down.
You took it down prior to your purchase of the property?
Yes, sir. Yeah, a lot of the information I've got on the home were from neighbors, the bank buy, they don't tell you nothing about the house. So, a lot of the information I've gotten were from the back neighbor, side neighbor, which are in all support, of my proposal.
The timing was, it's a question I was gonna ask later, so I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
But
And my concern that if it's placed any further, I have room to play on the side. It's the back part of the garage pad. There's no place, especially snow removal in the winter, there is no place to put snow removal if we have another winter like that. We got lucky last round, but, yeah. So, that's what I got for you.
and when you say put snow removal, you mean from the driveway itself?
Yeah, so, if the plow truck comes and pushes the snow, it's gotta be pushed somewhere. I can't push it back, I can't push it on anybody else's property. I have no place to put it other than my backyard on the left side where all the grass is. It's about half concrete, half grass, and that's where the snow would need to go. Otherwise, if that wasn't an issue, I could move it more to the left. But there's only so much room that I can move it from out that corner, if that makes any sense.
I think so. So what you're describing is that you could move the garage, when you're looking at the property to the left, which would be to the south, away from the property line. But if you start moving it towards the house,
Towards the house
Then-
becomes a considerable challenge, yeah. It gets real close to the house.
yeah, looks like, given the depth that you've got from the house to the rear property line of, see, the house is 31, and the front of the house is what, 17, almost 18? 97 to that front row,
Yeah,
leaves about 50. Yeah.
Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I was doing the math of the 97 depth to the front row and then taking the 18 feet for the front setback and the 30.65 for the depth of the house off the setback as well.
Okay.
aesthetically, I feel like
Oh,
it
nine
falls
more.
pretty much, I apologize.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
It falls pretty much in line with existing structures and other properties. In fact, if you look at the house from the road, it looks like it's missing something, you know? So that would be nice to fit that piece of the puzzle in there.
And I see that you revised your application to a 20 by 20 structure?
Correct.
Is that right? And that's a two-car garage?
Yes. Yeah, the 24 by 20, it was just too big. It was just too big. It would really, it would start to take away from my backyard, the little backyard that I would like to have and enjoy.
And is that all gonna be, how is that going to be delivered? Is it all in one piece? Is it in pieces that are assembled?
Comes in sections on a foundation.
So are you gonna have to remove this pad and build a new foundation for the structure that you're purchasing?
Correct. What I'm probably gonna do, my plan is to form over the existing pad and put footers around the perimeter to anchor the new garage on.
Philip, can you bring your microphone a little bit closer to you? Thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine then, so, the pre-existing structure, granted, you know, I presume you never saw it, right? The garage
There are
had-
photos in there that do have it. That Google Street View was, I wanna say, that those photos were taken probably about 10 years ago. Shows how often they drive down that road.
I mean, it looks like the concrete pad on the
Yeah,
survey drawing was about 17 and a half feet wide.
Correct.
And a little over 20 feet deep,
Yep.
just a hair over 20 feet deep. So it wasn't, I mean, I think a 20 by 20 is gonna, parking spots are usually what, 9 by 18-ish?
Yeah.
So if you've got 9 feet wide for a car, and you're putting 2 cars in there, you're at 18 feet.
It's tight, but
So 17 foot would be a single car garage with some storage
space on either
space.
side.
yeah.
Like a garage and a half, bay and a half. I had a question loading. With the proposal being so close to the lot line, both on the back and the side, less than a foot, and there being a fence right there, doesn't really provide a lot of opportunity for space for maintenance of the fence or the structure. Can you talk a little bit about,
Yeah, that fence where the garage is mine. I would probably take it down. Are you talking about the one in the back, the fence in the back? I'm sorry.
both, the back and the side?
The side is, the side is the neighbor's fence. It's actually on my lot line. There's a attached fence agreement
Right,
that is technically voided, but I don't want to go down that road. I want to be neighborly and try to avoid that. It needs a little care, needs to be propped up a little bit better, maybe reposted. I would like to keep the fence there.
so if you have less than a foot of, if you've got 8 inches of space between your garage wall and roof line and the fence,
On the right side, no, I have room to play there. I have probably 2 to 3 feet to play. If there was a condition met, I have a few feet to play on the right side. It's the back.
Yeah.
The back is really hard to be flexible on.
If I'm reading your survey map correctly, it looks like the note up in the kind of upper right-hand corner about the wood fence being 1.3 feet to the garage. 1.3 feet off the property line. I can't tell quite which one it's pointing to,
It's
but
off the property line.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's into my property line, correct?
If you kind of estimate it based on that width and the size and space between the garage and the fence, there's a little bit more space there than against the backside.
Correct.
So just to add a little bit, when I scaled off of the survey map, that concrete pad appears to be about 4 feet off of the lot line.
On the side, Jill, or the back?
On the north property line, on the
Okay.
side.
Side.
And as I look at the picture, does the ground actually slope up from where the existing concrete pad is to the fence on your neighbor's property?
The ground, I'm sorry, hold on, let me turn to that page.
So,
You're referencing which photo?
um,
Which part?
is it
You looking at this one, Phil?
Yeah. If you look at your very first large photo.
first photograph?
Yep,
Right. So if I were to stand on the concrete pad and look at the fence to the north,
yep.
so would the ground rise away from me would I be standing lower than the bottom of the fence?
No, it's pretty flush.
It's flush.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that part of the reason for the trenching at the edge of the asphalt, just to help water removal, to get it out of the
Yeah,
space?
That's a whole nother conversation, yeah. The,
Sorry, didn't mean to
well,
open.
it's
No,
not.
that's all right.
It kind of
The-
goes along with,
Yeah.
Let's have that conversation.
The runoff, that really big downpour we had a couple weeks ago, it was really eye-opening. The runoff that comes down High Street and then runs all the way down Durant. It runs down my driveway and runs down the driveway's pitched towards
The back.
the back, correct. We don't have rainfalls like that often. That's why I did add in there, appropriate drainage would be,
But it was the water that was entering your property from the street, from Durand, and coming into and going down your drive,
from High Street and then Durant, yeah,
or from High Street, yeah.
yeah.
So if the proposed garage had been there, you would have had a wet garage.
Yeah, I think that's why the bank took it down. That's the information that I was given.
History
So,
of flooding, which may have rotted out the existing prior garage.
yeah, and it was it's gotta be, I think there's already on the ground 1939 in some of that concrete, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Jill, you're right.
So that 1.5 car garage, or that 1 car garage wouldn't work anymore, even if it was still up,
Understood, but it influences my perspective as I
Yeah.
look at the photograph. I'm essentially looking downhill now.
Yes. The pad itself is level, that is what I meant,
Right,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
right,
Okay,
yes, right.
I understand now, yes.
Yeah, but it's two-dimensional, and in my mind,
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine 3 dimensions here, so thank you.
so given the limited space that you have to work with, are there alternatives to such a narrow setback on the rear and the side?
I've brainstormed, I really genuinely do not see another alternative.
Short
Can
of
you-
a smaller garage.
I was gonna say, can you talk about the need for a 20 by 20 garage?
Can I jump in 1 second?
Sure
And
thing.
maybe we can do this quickly. If you look at the concrete pad, it's indicative that the previous garage was 21.4 feet by 17.45. And the applicant has proposed a 20 by 20. So perhaps there could be 2 feet off of that rear because you're proposing a smaller garage. It's not bringing it closer to the street, but it's smaller in size. So perhaps 2 feet off of that property line at the rear and 4 feet off of the north property line, that side property line.
That's,
Does
I'm
that,
missing the 2 feet off the rear, Jill, because the depth
The-
was 20.2.
right, well, so the proposed garage would be 20 by 20.
Uh-huh.
And the existing, it says that it's 21.4. So if we've got,
Oh, I see, so it'd be a foot small, a
Right.
foot and a half smaller.
yeah, so we've got a proposal for a garage that's smaller than that existing pad. So it will, if it's still placed at that same point that's shown on the survey, it is closer to,
actually, Jill, you do raise a good point because of what our applicant was describing in that he would like to go, like basically cast over the existing garage slab, but, put the footers around the outside, the perimeter. With the 21 and a half foot length, he will have to cut either the front or the back end of the garage slab to remove it so that he can put the new footer down. So if he's cutting off the rear end, the west end, all the way at the depth of the property, that would pull the back end of the garage forward by approximately 2-ish feet in order to keep the 20 by 20 square.
This way you can still walk in the garage, too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a standard ADA opening door now is 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got to get a ladder back there to stain or do
Yeah.
repairs or get up on the roof or whatever, right? That's still not a lot of space,
Yeah.
especially when you're thinking about the angle. I mean, how tall is the garage?
Single
have to
story,
angle it?
relatively flat.
8-foot walls, I think.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the applicant said that there was a consideration about removing that rear fence, although the rear fence looks almost brand new, so,
just something to consider.
Yeah.
I think more than 2 feet would probably be better. It's 2 feet's better than 8 inches, but
Well,
it still doesn't give you a lot of space.
and let me ask, I guess, a question of the applicant. Is it detrimental to your project to move the garage 3 feet off of that rear lot line and have it come a foot closer to the driveway? Or I'm sorry,
front.
the property line, the front property line?
Theoretically, that's fine, but like I said, with that snowfall, when the plow has to put that snow somewhere, it's gonna have to go left into the yard, and it's very narrow. And I don't think they'll be able to get it back there if it comes much more forward.
Can you not be pulled out and pushed onto this? I mean, like when we shovel our driveway, we shovel it down to the bottom of the driveway and onto the right of way.
They would have to pull the snow back.
Right.
Which.
I'm no plow guy, but I think that's a little trickier than it sounds.
I mean,
I could.
happens in
I
our
could-
neighborhood, because there's no place, I mean, all of our driveways go right up to the garage, and they're not pushing it into the yard. They're pulling it out of the driveway and like pushing it up onto the, I don't know.
He's saying that the where to put it, there isn't any room to put it.
With a big snowfall, it's tricky to try to backleg your way in, you have to try to push your way in, so I get.
Yeah.
Can you move your microphone a little bit closer?
Or turn it on.
Turn on. So in the big snowstorm, say you got a foot of snow, it is much harder to try to pull your way in rather than to push your way in. So I get where you're coming from. Someone put the snow.
How about a snow blower?
Snow blower?
again, don't know where I would put it. It's a really big driveway. It goes back pretty deep.
And you can't really go right or left
Well,
through
you've
the
got
middle of
that,
it.
there's that little side yard on the right there.
Yeah.
What is it, 15 feet or so?
That really would only work for the front stretch. The hard part actually will be the stretch alongside the house where you can't get it out because you can't blow right because that's the neighbor's yard. You can't go left because that's his own
Blow it
house.
toward the street and then make
Well,
second pass?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
and-
not.
Done this for years.
I guess I encourage the board not to get too caught up in the
Yeah.
discussion about snow, but think more about where it may be appropriate for that garage to be located. You know, does it make sense, the applicant, and correct me if I'm wrong, has indicated that it would be acceptable to move the garage 4 feet from that north property line, that side line that we talk about, and 2 feet from that rear property line, based on the existing pad and the new dimensions of the proposed garage.
Yes, I mean, if that's a final offer, sure. You know, and if we can meet halfway, that would be great. It's just so small. And I wanted a small lot, but then when I started getting my little education on the garage and the placement, and I'm learning a lot. This is my first rodeo, so this is a learning curve.
I mean, what do you think the minimum would be on the back to get between, say, a fence, assuming it's gonna stay there, right? And the building to be able to just do regular, normal maintenance?
I mean, I feel like 3 feet is kind of where you want to be.
Yeah.
You can do it in three, or sorry, you can do it in two. It's extremely difficult because you can't turn sideways. 3 is a lot easier because you can now rotate your shoulders.
And you can't put a ladder back there.
You wouldn't necessarily want to put a ladder back there anyway because you can't guarantee the ground. If you're going to access the roof, you're going to go from the front side.
What about painting, staining? Like, what's the material of the shed?
It's a, what do they call that, an LP, smart siding?
Is that like a composite?
Yeah,
vinyl,
I think it's a
something or other?
semi-synthetic.
Okay. Are there any more questions from the board for the applicant? No?
No, thank
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening to speak on behalf of this application? And anybody here in opposition of the application? Okay, we'll close the public portion of this meeting and the board will consider the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we want to discuss or you want to dive right into the standards?
I think it's probably good if we discuss, if we're interested in any conditions, before we go through the standards, because I think we would consider the application with conditions if, that was going to be something that we placed on it.
you.
I'm
Let
definitely.
me start that
Yeah, go ahead.
discussion and propose that that the proposed garage be 3 feet from both the west and the north property lines.
For
So-
both,
and
both
somebody-
setbacks, right?
Sorry?
You're saying from the west and the north, so it has
West
the
and
two
the north.
sides.
Yeah, so you
You
can
know-
talk me out of them now.
So Philip, I would actually counter that we may want to try to maintain the 4 foot on the north side because the fence, the neighbor's fence is 1.3 feet from the property line. So if we go down to 3 feet, you are all of a sudden squished into about 2 feet between the garage and the property line.
Fair enough.
I would agree with that for the north side,
Yeah.
4 feet.
I think the 3 feet to the west side, I don't see a reason on that one to argue you, Phil.
All right.
Just did the math quickly, adding up the size of the house, the front setback, and then taking that from the 97 feet. It's only a total of 40 feet roughly from the the back corner of the house closest to that's actually 39 feet from the corner of the house to the back of the property line. So with a 20-foot garage and a 3-foot space to the property line, you've only got about, well, 17 feet to make that turn.
Yeah,
Would it be worth saying if he did take down the fence to the west, that he would not need that 3 feet then, or do you want to just stick with the 3 feet?
I think you have to do it based on the property line.
Yeah.
the
I would
fence
concur.
could easily go up thereafter, so.
Yeah.
I agree with your discussion. I think that that's a reasonable solution.
You said agree. For a second, I thought you said
Oh,
angry.
I thought he said angry. I was like,
I did too, and I was trying to figure out what happened.
oh, agree, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
I was like, wow,
5
this
heart
hearing
attacks
went
given.
south real fast.
I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never had a comment from a board member like that. I
Same,
don't know what to
same.
do with that. Okay. So I think the discussion is that we would like to condition the application and the consideration of the application on a 4-foot setback on the north property line and a 3-foot setback on the west property line.
All right, you want to run through the standards?
Yeah.
An undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the requested area variance.
And these, we're answering and discussing each of these with the conditions in place,
Well,
correct?
how you're gonna do it is you're going to say, as, you know, the proposal that you thought that there would be certain, impacts from that and understanding the need for a garage, and the desire to have this garage, that you find it appropriate to have the setbacks as detailed.
Okay. So we'll define the neighborhood for purposes of the discussion as Durant Place. And discussion on question 1,
Have we defined the neighborhood?
Durant Place.
Okay. I'd like to suggest that the neighborhood be expanded to include the 3 properties on High Street on either side of the intersection.
I'm fine with that.
And the corresponding properties across the street as well.
On High Street,
On High Street, yes.
okay.
So in terms of having an adverse effect, I think the applicant addressed drainage issues. Do we need to add a condition that those will be put in place, given the testimony that we heard about the flooding situation?
No, I don't believe so, because
Okay.
building code requires that you,
would take care of
manage
it.
all water on site.
Okay,
But I do want to, again, encourage the board to consider, to say, for this, as we go through these standards, to think about the current proposal, and you have deemed that you're not pleased with that, you feel that it has impacts, and thus condition it on something else.
yeah. So I think in this case, I would say that the variance is asking for, and I know we get to substantial later, but placing the structure within a foot of the property lines on the north and west side could potentially have adverse effects in terms of being able to maintain the building.
Or maintain neighbors' fencing if they would choose to put up a fence, you know.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me is the current owner purchased the property without any improvement on the site. He's not, right? And so the property, at least insofar as the proposal is concerned, is compliant with respect to current setbacks, because there's no structure there. Right? And the expectation is that any structure that goes into that space will have to be compliant with current zoning regulations. To propose a structure which is therefore purposely not compliant, almost by definition creates an adverse impact because it cuts against what the ordinance itself is trying to protect.
I've got to learn shorthand. All right. Any more on that one? Okay, I'll move to
No,
two.
Go ahead to two.
The
Thank you.
benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved in some feasible manner other than an area variance.
I don't see how.
Yeah, I think even to get a single car garage in there,
I mean, there's
there
no,
would need,
there's no wiggle room, literally.
right. But I think our conversation about, the conditions sort of, buffers the extremity of the variance that's needed, to
Right.
achieve the objective.
I agree. Not angry, agree.
This is-
Guys,
Yeah.
see what I
This-
gotta put
I
up
think
with?
this is another instance where we have a property that, both a lot and a structure that were constructed, drawn and constructed under, if there, probably without prior zoning, and we've gone through several generations of zoning since. So that creates a situation where the property is out of date with respect to modern expectations of property owners and the way they use their properties. And we either force the property owner to behave as if he were much, much older than he appears to be, or we let him live the life of someone like all of us here in this room. So I think that there's no reason to think that we should have, that the zoning law requires people to give up a customary lifestyle.
I agree. All right. Anything more on question two, or can we move to three? I think we're good.
Okay. The proposed area variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I apologize. I was looking at that question when we were talking about question one. So,
Well, I think the conditions we're placing upon on the proposal are trying to mitigate any adverse effects on the physical and environmental conditions, giving space for water to get around the building, giving a little bit of space for the physical, ability to access things around the building or neighbors to get to their stuff that might be where a little closer to the building than maybe it should be. But I think that's, it's not as a bad effect as what it could have been. And it's not necessarily a bad effect in general, but we're just trying to make it better with the conditions.
agree.
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
Question four?
The requested area variance is substantial.
Yeah, by
Yes.
definition.
Yeah.
Given that the side yard setback required is 10 feet and the rear yard setback required is 30 feet in this residential district, and the proposal as submitted is less than a foot, 3/4 of a foot, it's certainly substantial. I think I would say it's still substantial with the conditions. However, the residential district immediately adjacent to this property has smaller setbacks, I believe 5 feet rear and side. So while we're bound by the setbacks that are in the particular district that the property is located in. We're also reasonable thinking people, and going back to what Phil mentioned earlier about the zoning code maybe not keeping pace with current life and residential demands, I think it's reasonable to note that there are, how would you describe them? Smaller setbacks, I guess, in a residential district that's immediately adjacent. So I think the conditioned setbacks come a little bit closer to that requirement.
I agree.
Any other discussion?
Just looking at the math, I think the only way you'd get a 20 by 20 garage in the backyard, in that property, on the back side of the house, is literally having it touching the house, so,
Right,
yeah, I agree.
Okay,
okay.
the alleged difficulty was self-created.
Yes, I mean, if you're putting a garage in there,
I'm a little more sympathetic to the applicant here, because this property was drawn long before these regulations went into place. And it, as Aaron just said, would be virtually impossible to place any compliant structure on the property. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to the applicant here that this is not a classic self-created hardship.
I agree.
So
I
you
mean,
don't,
the applicant's not responsible for the dimensions of the lot.
Or,
Yet-
or the fact that zoning was, or that it was zoned after that fact and long before he attempted this project.
but let me be Debbie Downer for a second. The applicant doesn't have to place a garage.
That is true.
So
which is-
I think
Which is
it's-
why I said I'm sympathetic to the position, and
Right.
I'm less inclined to treat this as a classic self-created hardship.
So how I propose to respond to that is yes,
But
however.
Yes, but it's fine.
Yes, but, okay. So on that note, I'm assuming we're ready to vote.
yep,
It'll be, the resolution will be to construct a detached accessory structure garage not meeting certain lot yard and bulk requirements on condition that the 20 by 20 garage be located 3 feet from the west property line and 4 feet from the north property line.
okay. Do we have a motion to approve the application as conditioned?
I so move.
I will second the motion.
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much for your application.
Gives you enough room to put your snow blower in back of the garage.
Can we stay longer if we want to?
We should start forcing people to stay, right? This is a good
It's a beautiful
time.
project you got going on.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. Stuckey to leave. Wait for him to go. All right, so this is case 3. This is an area variance. The address is 34 East Avenue. The applicant is Rachel Stuckey. The request is to construct a detached accessory structure, a garage, not meeting certain lot, yard, and bulk requirements, and to extend an existing driveway that is not 10 feet setback from the property line.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Rachel Stuckey. I have lived in the village for 18 years. We bought our house that we're talking about 18 years ago, and since then we've done a lot of improvements to it. We've, redone the siding, the windows, the roof, replaced the wraparound porch. It was brand new with structure and everything, and done some work on the inside as well. So one of the things that needed to be done since before we moved in was the garage. So we're finally getting to that, 18 years in. And so the plan is to take down, which actually already started taking place, but
take down the existing 24 by 30 garage and replace that with a 27 by 40 garage, and changing it out from the one-story structure that was there to a more historically accurate, we feel, gambrel-style carriage barn type of garage. So that would hold 2 cars. We would be increasing our electric service, also to be able to, potentially serve 2 electric vehicles, chargers in the garage. So that would be part of that work. It would be a 2-story structure with the second floor housing like a wood shop space. We do not plan to have any water or sewer in the building, so do not plan to do that anytime in the future. We would be adding heat and cooling to that second floor space only, not to the first floor, just to have more of a climate control for the shop space. So the, variances that we would be looking for would be height of the structure. The allowed height is 15 feet, and we would be at 16.75 feet, so just a little bit over. And also on the driveway, we would match the existing driveway, so not any closer to the property than it already is, but just taking that straight back to the garage. The new garage would be located about 10 feet further back from the house than the current garage. That will give us a little bit more space for turning around vehicles, so they can head out the driveway front facing. We have teenagers coming up, so well, we can master the backup of the driveway. We're not sure about them. So yeah, it would move back about 10 feet and also a little further off of the property line, so we don't need a variance for that part of it. So we would be moving 5 feet off that property line. A couple other details. We had a number of photos with the application. All of those are within about 2 blocks of our house. So on East Avenue, where we are, several of those are located there, along with East Street, which conveniently intersects East Avenue, to be not confusing at all, and on Frank Street. So a lot of those photos show garages that would be similar in style and height, and that's where we felt that style of garage would match well with the historic nature of our neighborhood. There are a lot of driveways, which actually came up in case number 1 as well, that are very close to the property lines or sometimes overlapping them. So we have a number of neighbors also that have shared driveways between two different lots. But a lot of those are very close to the property line. And of course, if you've visited the property, there's nowhere else for that driveway to go. It needs to be between the house and the fence there. I think that's all the details that I'm thinking of right now, so I would welcome any questions.
Okay, great. Just, Jill, a clarification question. This doesn't, the application, we're not considering a driveway expansion though, right?
What we're
Or there
considering
is.
is that the existing driveway is going farther back, and it's maintaining that line. It's 3.3 feet.
I got you. Okay.
So that we're considering because they're extending a nonconformity.
Yeah, so just extending it back to the
Okay.
garage. We also, one other note on the driveway, if you look at whatever page the old site survey is with the new colors overlaid on that with the blue and the red. So the red would be the new garage, as you can see, that's set back from the old. And where the hatched blue is asphalt that we've basically either removed already or would plan to remove. The owner before us changed the property back from having an apartment to being a single family. And so they had a lot of asphalt back there. And so we've reduced some of that and hope to reduce that further, other than extending to the garage.
I take it the existing garage has been already torn down?
Yes, it happened in a weekend. Yeah.
They work fast.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, it had a number, it was probably about 100 years old, but it had some structural issues.
What kind of
those,
heat do you
yeah.
propose in the upper story of the garage?
A heat pump style, like a,
Split unit?
yep, split system, cold climate heat pump.
And I have to ask, because I don't see it on the drawing.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer based on how this is laid out. The big tree that's in your backyard,
Yeah,
is
that will
that
stay,
staying?
yes. We planted that, so. Yes,
It's a beautiful tree. It
Yeah.
looks very healthy, so.
yeah, tulip poplar.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, you can have a seat, and I'm gonna ask, because we have another member in our audience, are you here to speak on behalf or in opposition, or just here in support? Okay. All right.
Oh, no, actually, you
You
totally
can.
could. Yup. So there is nothing that precludes anyone. You are you're a member of the public.
I could help that other gentleman. I would take my neighbor's fence down and build a new fence on his property.
You should have spoke in support during the last case.
I mean, that would be in the rule. The 4 foot.
Not a bad idea.
Well, they may have to do, he may decide to do that anyway now that we've put the setback requirement in, so.
That would be the easiest way to do that.
All right, so I think we can close the public comment on this case and consider the standards as the board.
Okay, the first one, an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the requested area variance.
No, I think just the opposite. I think the fact that it's architecturally designed to be in harmony with the house has a lot going for it.
Let's define the neighborhood too.
The neighborhood would be defined as East Ave, bound by East Street to the east, Hart Street to the west, Frank Street to the north, and High Street to the south. And I agree with Dan. I think this, going back to the pictures, the fact that the applicant has designed the structure to be in character with historical properties is an improvement based on what was already there, not just in condition, but also aesthetically. And I appreciated in the application reading the consideration that the applicant made in terms of the height of the building, considering not going up a second floor for the wood shop, but instead expanding at a single level, but the impact of that sort of taking up more of the green space in the backyard. And, I think in terms of character of the neighborhood, this fits in really well and accomplishes, a smaller footprint.
Yeah. In a sense, I see this as one of the gateway properties to this particular neighborhood because adjacent to the property is a very large parking lot across which one can see from wide angles up and down, but not only the defining streets, but beyond the streets
Right.
that we've defined. So the effort that went into architectural considerations here, I agree, does mitigate any undesirable change in the neighborhood.
I agree.
Okay. We ready for the second question?
The benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved in some feasible manner other than an area variance.
Well, I guess I just touched on
Yep.
this in terms of the height trade-offs.
Yes, there were trade-offs here with these two questions blend together in this particular application. And for the same reasons, I would answer number 2 the same way I answered number 1.
Any other comment on
No.
2? Okay, question 3.
The proposed area variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I can't see where that would
I
be the
can't see
case.
how it would.
I can find none either.
Okay.
I think it's worth noting that, if I recall correctly, the applicant did address, they're moving the new garage to meet the side setback and adding gutters to the building will improve the water flow by preventing the water from flowing to the east onto the neighbor's property.
Yes. I also appreciated the consideration about sloping the driveway that's included in the application.
The requested area variance is substantial.
I don't think the height variance is substantial, but the driveway setback is substantial, but it's mitigated by the fact that there's already such a long stretch of pre-existing non-compliant, non-conforming driveway. Technically, it's a large percentage of setback, but it's already there.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we're removing what amounts to a non-conforming garage because of the setback and replacing it with a non-conforming garage,
right.
right? So almost by definition, that becomes a substantial, one expects a conforming structure to be put in place of a non-conforming one, and we're not getting that here.
Anything else on that one? Okay. The alleged difficulty was self-created. Yes, but
Yes, but
does anybody want
it's
to,
my least favorite question.
after? I'll discuss that with the state and ask them to remove that from the state statutes.
I mean, almost, I think every case that I've sat on has been a yes, but usually.
And I think they typically are, and I guess that's, the standards are really created for boards to look at these because the request of the granting of a variance is a serious matter.
Yes.
There is a request before to ask for something that the code does not allow.
I think the
So-
benefits in this case greatly outweigh the,
Moreover, in the use variance context, this is a fatal mistake.
Yes,
yes.
Right.
correct.
And so it's not unfair for the statute to ask us to say, should this be a fatal mistake in this instance also? The impact in cases like this suggests that it shouldn't be, so we can adjust on, if one read 4 and 5 together, for example, and we said this were a nonconformity replacing a nonconformity, and that old one was also a monstrosity, so we're not gonna do that, and it's another thing.
Yeah, and I think those two, now that we're talking about this, I think it's supposed to trigger you to think, is there any way that that applicant hasn't considered that could be code compliant?
well, I think there's evidence that the applicant has considered multiple ways. And the proposed solution or application, again, has a lot of benefits in terms of the aesthetic as well as the utility of the proposed new structure, more than warranting the self-creation issue.
Anything else on that one? Okay.
I'll make a
So-
motion to approve the application as submitted.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed.
That's it.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you for your application. It was very well put together.